What kind of HOA tyrant tries to storm a man's barn at 7 a.m. with a fake badge and a dream-based restraining order? That's the question I was asking myself when Ethan, a 24-year-old lifeguard turned self-proclaimed chief of neighborhood enforcement, squared up to me like I was hiding a meth lab instead of a sleepy goat named Daisy. I stood there in my pajama pants, coffee in one hand, Daisy yawning in the other, as she casually dropped a steaming REVYEW on Ethan's boot. I nearly clapped. It wasn't even sunrise, and my quiet morning of feeding animals had spiraled into a showdown with a clipboard-wielding mall cop who thought he was Rambo. This wasn't just an overstep, it was a declaration of war. I'd hung up my lawyer hat 6 years ago, trading courtrooms for a goat farm in Pine Willow to keep my blood pressure in check. But Sarah Mitchell, the HOA president with a vendetta sharper than her purple highlighter, had other plans. Ethan wasn't a cop, not even close, just a kid with a badge printed off Etsy, and a list of citations longer than his resume, including one for excessive hoof clatter. When I asked what law let him barge into my private barn, he mumbled about Community Safety Ordinance 4C, and waved a paper with my name misspelled as Jerk Larson in Comic Sans. Daisy sneezed on his khakis. I blinked. He blinked. Game on. The trouble started 2 weeks earlier when Sarah spotted my freshly painted red Barno approval form filed. You'd think I'd dumped nuclear waste in the creek from the way she marched up my driveway, bylaws in hand, her face twisted like she'd caught me keying her Prius. That barn, she said, violate the neighborhood aesthetic code, a phrase she'd underlined, circled, and starred in glitter pen. Since then, she'd slapped me with 12 complaints, 12 in 14 days. One for barn-related odors, another for suspicious clover patches, and my favorite, goat loitering with malicious intent. Ethan was her new attack dog, and this morning was his big debut. After I sent Ethan packing, muttering about escalation, I called my old law school buddy Mike. He worked at a firm that ate HOA bullies for breakfast. When I told him about Ethan's warrantless barn raid, he laughed so hard I heard his coffee spill. Pine Willow? The place that fined a guy for planting zucchini? You filmed this, right? Oh, I filmed it. Daisy's boot critique was in 4K. Go nuclear, Mike said. I'm emailing you some legal templates. Welcome back to the fight, brother. I hung up, coffee buzzing, and reviewed the footage. Ethan's voice got sharper as I pressed for legal grounds, peaking with, You think the Constitution matters in Pine Willow? That clip was gonna break the internet. An hour later, a notice was taped to my mailbox, a due law 25,000 fine for obstructing HOA inspection, defiance, and inciting livestock aggression. I laughed, then laughed louder, then stopped when the adrenaline hit. The number was insane, but the message was clear: Sarah wanted me out. By noon, she strutted onto my property like a reality TV VY lane, pink VY sword gleaming, sunglasses spelling, boss, in rhinestones. 2 board members trailed her, looking like they'd rather be at the dentist. I offered lemonade and a printed Fourth Amendment. She swatted both away. We have reports, she said, voice dripping with community theater GRAVYTAS, of unsanctioned livestock activity threatening neighborhood wellness. Feeding goats in my barn? I shot back. She sniffed. The board voted for an emergency inspection. We sent notice. You mean Ethan's Comic Sans fanfic? I handed her an envelope. Here's my notice: cease and desist for trespassing, harassment, and impersonating authority. Oh, and Daisy's an emotional support goat. Legally protected. Daisy bleated on cue. One board member choked back a laugh. Sarah's face went tomato red. You want war, Mr. Larson? I sipped my lemonade. No, Sarah. I want peace. But I'll torch your bylaws legally if you keep stepping on my land. That night, under solar lights by the barn, I dug into HOA documents, state laws, and case law while Daisy snoozed nearby. I wasn't just defending myself, I was exposing Sarah's reign of terror. The next day, I uploaded the barn video titled, "Fake Cop Tries to Raid My Barn, Goat Disagrees." It hit 1,000 views in 20 minutes. By morning, the million. Sarah had no clue what she'd unleashed. At 2 million views, my goat farm became a suburban rebellion beacon. Comments called Daisy a national treasure and Sarah a dictator in a VY soar. Someone remixed Ethan's boot incident to courtroom music glorious. But it only fueled Sarah's fire. She hit me with 3 more citations, one for publicly shaming an HOA official via farm animals. I framed that one. It was time to go on the offensive. I dove into the HOA bylaws, a mess of contradictions and rules about hedge height, but nothing about actual law. Sarah's complaints always passed in board meetings with no recorded votes. Suspicious. I requested 3 years of HOA financials, my right under the bylaws. Sarah's response? A handwritten note saying that was for compliant members only. I fired back a state statute PDF. She countered with a restraining order, claiming I threatened her safety with hostile livestock and online slander. Hurry vy denke? A dream where Daisy toppled her garden gnome and whispered, "This is Larson's turf." A judge either exhausted or an HOA fan granted a temporary order, barring me from Sarah's property, including the HOA clubhouse. No meetings for me. Classic dictator move. Mike filed to dissolve the order and subpoenaed Sarah and Ethan for trespassing, harassment, and impersonating law enforcement. We found a case where an HOA had resigned for retaliatory fines. Sarah's playbook. Neighbors started waking up. My neighbor Tom, a retired pharmacist fined for a too blue fence, brought me a stack of absurd citations, one for weather inappropriate Christmas lights, another for overly enthusiastic mailbox opening. We formed the Pine Willow Resistance in my barn, now the courthouse and goat sanctuary. Cookies were shared. Rebellion was polite. Ethan cracked first. I found him sulking by the clubhouse, staring at the sky. "I wanted to be a paramedic," he sighed. "Not this." I offered Daisy's carrot snacks. He took one. Sarah promised a promotion to Director of Residential Peace. Better clipboard. He wasn't the VY Lanja Sarah's pawn. At the next HOA meeting, which I couldn't attend, Tom and others brought EVY Denke, photos of Sarah's own rule-breaking backyard, lists of nonsense fines. Sarah screamed, threatened cops, but the board suspended her. Ethan quit, handing over his badge, an escape room name tag. Then I found the smoking gun. Helping Tom sort old HOA files in a storage closet, I stumbled on a receipt for a Dula 2700, community sculpture, a gnome quartet with swappable hats. 5 such purchases over 3 years. The landscaping budget could have funded a small nation, yet the lawns were dead. Clubhouse upgrades included a Dula 15,000 espresso machine. Sarah was embezzling, and I had the paper trail. Sarah fought back, mailing a gold-trimmed letter claiming she was the VY Tim of an anarchist with goats. She demanded an emergency board meeting. Mike and I prepped a lawsuit, compiling a binder of violations, witness statements, and a guy EVY Ted for a pool flamingo who sent his regards from Florida. At a preliminary hearing, Sarah went full reality star, accusing me of goat hypnosis, and playing, threatening, audio her own rant about fining residents into submission. The judge, barely hiding her disbelief, ordered an HOA audit. Ethan testified, admitting he faked violations. The judge told Sarah, "This is an HOA, not your personal fiefdom." Sarah was charged with misappropriation, misconduct, and impersonating a reasonable adult, as our group chat put it. The HOA was paused for restructuring, fines were re-VYU'd, and I got a compensation hearing. Daisy was name-dropped in court notes as a symbol of resistance. Chad became a volunteer EMT, naming a shelter puppy after Daisy. Pine willow bloomed, yellow doors, turquoise fences, kids' chalk art everywhere. A news crew interviewed me. "Know your rights," I said. "And get a goat." The clip went viral. Book agents called. A council asked me to run for mayor. I declined. Goats don't wait. We threw a barn-warming party. No bylaws, just laughter and Daisy in a freedom fighter cape. A note appeared under my barn door. Thank you for reminding us what community means. That was it, not the lawsuit, not the money, but knowing I'd fought nonsense and won. Pine Willow was home again, thanks to a fake badge, a fearless goat, and a neighborhood that remembered its spine.